This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Whoa, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Welcome into a Wednesday, hump day, middle of the week, getting you ready, of course, for another football weekend. We're halfway through. Sixers making some news, trying to steal little headlines from the Philadelphia Eagles. Of course, the World Series finally getting done last night. We got a lot to get to in just an hour to get to it. Of course, it is a Wednesday. That means Dave Weinberg joins us each and every Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up at 6:15. We got a lot of Eagles news and information to get to. Also, baseball is a big part of Dave's sports fandom, so we'll touch on with him what he thought of the World Series as well. 609-403-0973, the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. I mentioned the Eagles news. We're right now over at 97.3 ESPN.com. You can check out the full latest Eagles news and updates. Jason Peters back at practice. Jalen Reagor back at practice. Lane Johnson did not practice. What does that all mean? Well, it means something that frankly makes me cringe. Is that, again, we have Jason Peters at practice today at left tackle, bumping Jordan Mailata to right tackle. And this just frustrates me so much. This organization keeps giving this beaten up older player every opportunity to fail this team again and again. Instead of putting him at right guard, which is where you should have had him at all year long if it wasn't for all the injuries. The reason why you re-signed him in the first place after Brandon Brooks got injured out for the year, right? You brought Jason Peters in here to play right guard. He's playing right guard in training camp. He gets injured. Jordan Mailata came in here and did a very, very good job at left tackle for 4 games. Was he elite? No. Frankly, he's still learning football. That's half the reason why you drafted him and developed him for the last few years. You didn't draft him and develop him for him to be a swing tackle whenever you feel like it. No. You brought him in here to see if he could be an NFL football player, a starter. And he showed you for 4 games he can be. So the first opportunity Jason Peters has to walk in that door and tell everybody, I'm a left tackle, everyone just says, yes, Jason Peters, whatever you say, Jason Peters, and they stick him over at left tackle, and now you're bumping Mailata to the opposite sideline where he has to relearn another position that he's not as familiar with the opposite footwork and the opposite of everything he's been doing for 4 weeks because Jason Peters has clout. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. At some point, none of these older players are ever going to walk through that door ever again. But yet Jason Peters is allowed to dictate the entire franchise because he's Jason Peters. I hate it. I absolutely can't stand it. And Doug Peterson and his wishy-washy answers, well, he could do this, he could do that. You're the head coach of the football team. You tell Jason Peters, Jason, Mailata's done a very good job for 4 weeks at left tackle. We need you at right guard because, frankly, we've had a bunch of conveyor belts flying through here next to Jason Kelsey for the last 4 weeks. We've had Jamon Brown and Sua Opeta at our guard positions. We need you at guard to hold down the fort. But does Doug do that? No. He lets Jason Peters go out there and practice at left tackle. The fact this organization keeps letting this often injured guy keep going out there and dictating the fate of this offensive line in front of a quarterback who's been hit the most times in the NFL this year. Carson Wentz is among the most hit, the most sacked, and the most pressured in the entire league. And the last time we saw Jason Peters at left tackle, he was a turnstile. But I'm supposed to be okay with him, first practice back, left tackle. I am not okay with it. Am I maybe out of my mind being this annoyed by it? Maybe. But maybe I'm also tired of seeing Jamon Brown and Sua Opeta and a partridge in a pear tree out there playing offensive line. And when you finally have a competent, solid player who is in his first NFL games in his entire life, holding his own out there, and all of a sudden you say, you know what, Mailata, thanks for playing, but we're going to put the old man back out there, even though you probably won't be able to finish a game on Sunday Night Football. No, I'm not okay with it. It's very frustrating that this organization keeps making these decisions because one guy wants his way. I thought this was a team sport. Whatever happened to no I in team, right? Why does Jason Peters think that him and his desires are so much more important than the rest of the team? I don't know about Jason Peters, but you know what I've watched for the last 4 weeks that he hasn't played at left tackle? I've seen a left tackle do his job, and I've seen a right guard not do his. I've seen Jamon Brown basically play some of the worst football I've ever seen at the NFL level. I've seen Sua Opeta get pushed around and tricked because he lacks experience. I've seen Jason Kelsey rolling his eyes in between plays because he realizes he's playing against some of the least experience he has in about 5 or 6 years at the guard positions. The Philadelphia Eagles have had to trot out there everyone they can possibly get to play right tackle. But you're telling me it's okay to move a guy who has 4 games of NFL experience at one position, never played football in high school, never played football in college, and all of a sudden he's supposed to just learn and figure out how to play right tackle on Wednesday, a few days out from playing arguably one of the most important games of your season against the Dallas Cowboys, a team that if you can put down and bury them and put them out of their misery, it puts you in a position to take a full stranglehold of the division. And one of the only things the Cowboys can do is get after the quarterback to some extent with guys like DeMarcus Lawrence. I get that they traded Emerson Griffin and they cut Dontari Poe, but they got pass rushers. Have you seen Aldon Smith this year? Literally the only thing the Cowboys defense can do is get after quarterbacks because they have Lawrence and Smith on the edges. And yet I'm supposed to be okay with Jason Peters, who the last time I saw him, he was letting guys get to Carson Wentz left and right at left tackle. I am not okay with this. 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Don't worry. I will get to baseball a little bit later in the show. I also will get to the Sixers as well. But I had to get that off my chest. I can't be the only one who is exasperated with the Eagles and their constant just giving in to Jason Peters. They act like Jason Peters is the only veteran player to ever walk through those doors. One day, Jason Peters won't be walking through those doors, and you're going to have to start playing with these young guys. It's a blessing in disguise that Alshon Jeffrey has not played football for the last 10-plus months because it's given us an opportunity to see more of Greg Ward. It's given us an opportunity to force Travis Fulgham into action. It's given us an opportunity to force John Hightower to have to overcome his shortcomings and become a better player sooner than later. And Jason Peters missing those 4 games forced us to see what Mailata can do. And what we saw was a monster of a human being go out there and put his best foot forward and play solid football. I don't know if Mailata is going to be an all-pro or not, but here's what I do know. I feel more comfortable with him at left tackle than I do Jason Peters. Game night here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, a Weinberg Wednesday. Dave Weinberg, he can tell me if I'm crazy or not being this frustrated with the Eagles coming up next. Of course, Dave has covered the Eagles for over 2 decades now. Been around the Eagles, covering them He'll join us coming up next year on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by Matt Black Kia. Matt Black Kia wants to get you approved today. That's Matt Black Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. 609-403-0973 at PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Keep the text coming. We'll get to them just a little bit later this hour. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Of course, Eagles, Cowboys. We can hear Eagles versus Cowboys this Sunday night on 97.3 ESPN. Mel Reese, Mike Quick on the call Sunday night. But before we get there, of course, we have the latest Eagles news to get into right now with Dave Weinberg. It is a Weinberg Wednesday. Check out his extra point columns right now at 973ESPN.com. Follow Dave on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Dave, how you doing this Wednesday?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing all right, except for the fact that I don't understand, and maybe you could help me understand, or maybe I'm just too frustrated to think clearly about this. So, Jason Peters, he's back at practice. Great. We get another body back on the field. But after Doug Peterson said to the media, oh, well, we'll talk with Jason and we'll figure out what we're going to do with Jason when he comes back because he can play guard or he can play tackle. What's the first thing they do? They put him at left tackle. They kick Mailata to right tackle. And I just don't understand why this organization just keeps bending at the knee to this guy when the last time we saw him, he was a turnstile at left tackle, and then he gets injured for like the 200th time.
I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. I'm as puzzled about it as you are. Yeah, it's clear. I mean, Jason Peters is not an left tackle, an elite left tackle anymore. I mean, Jordan Mailata was a little bit inconsistent, but it seemed like he was improving as he went, and it would have made a whole lot more sense to just keep Jordan at left tackle and move Peters into maybe right guard, I guess. So, you have a little bit of veteran stability there, but yeah, that makes no sense. And I don't understand, like you, how he's able to wield this kind of power over everybody. I just don't understand what he's done to deserve that kind of authority. I mean, to undermine the coach, to basically tell the coach he'll play where he wants to play. That just makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah, and, look, poor Jason Kelsey, he's had to play against next to Jamon Brown one week and Sua Opeta the next week. I mean, I have to think that Jason Peters has got to be better than either one of those guys at guard at this point. You could help your center out, who's one of the only starters left on this team at one point during the season, and you have a quarterback who's been hit the most in the NFL, but yet you're taking a guy who, as you mentioned, he's gotten better each week, a guy who, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, Mailata, but at least he's been much more serviceable than I ever expected he could be. I think the Eagles would be much better if they just said, Jason, you're going to go to right guard because you got to go out there. You've been the protector for all these years. Well, now you got to go out there and protect Jason Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, especially since he worked at right guard mostly, whatever the training camp there was, he was the right guard there. And according, if you believe Doug, he was making progress and seemed to be developing a rapport with Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. So, yeah, this makes, Sua Opeta, Jamon Brown, like you said, they were both disastrous, really. So move Nate Herbig to left guard, if that's where you feel like he's more comfortable. Move Jason Peters to right guard and go with that. You're right. It makes there's really no sense in this because it's just going to mean more trouble for the offensive line, for Carson Wentz, for the running game, for everybody, really.
Now, you mentioned trouble. The only good news for the Eagles overall right now, aside from the fact they're getting guys back like, Peters and Rager and Dallas Goedert back at practice today, is the fact they're going against the dumpster fire known as the Dallas Cowboys. And I didn't think it could get worse. And the Dallas Cowboys, their defense is already bad enough. And they traded Everson Griffin. They released two other players today. And Jerry Jones is yelling at people on the radio, and the defensive coordinator is sticking Tabasco sauce in his eye. So at least the Eagles are going against a beatable team this week.
Yeah, if there's one, like you said, the one bright spot is the fact that they're facing probably the worst team in the NFL, and I would include the New York Jets in that conversation too.
Wow, you really put them worse than the Jets?
At the moment, based on what I've seen, yeah. I mean, they're just a complete disaster offensively, defensively without Andy Dalton. I don't know if he's going to play on Sunday or not, but even with him, they just seem to have nothing going for them, really. I mean, even Ezekiel Elliott is fumbling the ball, not getting much room to run behind an injury-riddled offensive line, and their defense is a total disaster. So, yeah, I'm if the Eagles don't win this one, they got to fire everybody. I mean, Peterson, Howie, Jeff should fire himself. I mean, this is just there's just no way they can lose this game.
The one thing we do know the Cowboys have, as you mentioned, is mostly on offense. They have a lot of offensive skill weapons, but the Eagles are getting back Avonte Maddox. So it seems like, at least for certain parts of the Eagles team, they're getting healthy at the right time. And with the bye week coming up, is it safe to assume that a healthy Eagles team can take a stranglehold of the NFC East?
You would think so, especially given the fact that the rest of the NFC East is in such bad shape. Although, I mean, I'm kind of intrigued by Washington, though. I mean, they beat the Eagles first game of the year when the Eagles had a lot of their players there, and they just seem to be hanging around. I mean, they had a pretty convincing win the other night. So, I'm not really sure that the Eagles are kind of in the driver's seat here. I mean, they are technically at 2-4-1, but I don't know that they're ready to exactly pull away from the rest of the teams yet. I mean, they will be getting guys back, but before those guys got hurt, I wasn't very impressed with the Eagles anyway. So I'm not real sure that they're ready to take control of anything just yet.
I've heard mentioned by somebody else, and if I could remember the person who said it, I would give them credit, but I can't off the top of my head right now. But someone else I heard say that this entire year the Eagles have played to the level of their competition. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, they're been the case for most years, really. I mean, they're known to beat a team they have no business beating, like, for example, Green Bay last year on the road, and then they lose to teams that you think they have no business losing to. And it's, I guess that's just the state of the whole NFL. I don't know if there's anybody that's really that consistent, but the Eagles are known for that. I mean, they do. I don't know what it is about them, but they do seem to. I guess because football is such an emotional game, and you can't help but take teams lightly. I mean, you don't want to do it, but I think it's just human nature to take your foot off the gas pedal a little bit when you think you got something under control, and they paid for that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday night because, like I said, they should dominate the Cowboys. But then again, you have those games like they had against the Vikings a couple of years ago, and Joe Webb beat them. So I'm not really sure what to expect.
Dave Weinberg joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Dave, I know how much you love the game of baseball, so I've been looking forward to talking a little baseball with you because the whole world is talking about them pulling Snell at the worst possible time, and the Dodgers went on to win the World Series. So what were your takeaways from Game 6 in the 2020 World Series?
That was one of the most ridiculous moves I've ever seen. I just don't get it. I know that Cash has been playing that way. He's been managing that way all year. Snell hadn't been into the seventh inning for any start this season, but he was dominating the Dodgers. I mean, 9 strikeouts, 2 hits, no walks. He owned them, and the top 3 hitters in the order were combined 0 for 6 with 6 strikeouts. And even Snell himself said, everybody's worried about him facing the order for the 3rd time around, but good pitchers know how to make those adjustments. They know how to change some things up, so that the hitters can't settle in or get used to anything. So, I was just dumbfounded that. Like I said, I know that he's been doing it all year, but this is the World Series, for crying out loud. You don't take the ball away from Steve Carlton or Sandy Koufax or Bob Gibson. And I know Blake Snell's not a Hall of Famer by any stretch, but he was pitching like one last night, and that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Well, he's also a Cy Young Award winner, and even Mookie Betts said after the game, he said, when we saw that they pulled him out of the game, I looked over at my manager and I said, we got him. So, I mean, if the other team realizes it and your own manager doesn't realize it, I don't understand what Kevin Cash was thinking personally because of the fact that, for me, I know Kevin Cash's background. He's a former catcher, so you would think a former catcher would have a good grip on the situation with his pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as we're just in an era now where analytics rule everything else, and that's not the way good managers do things. I mean, I understand that analytics have a part of the game, but you also have to manage by instinct and by feel, by momentum. And clearly that wasn't the case last night. He kept saying, no, there was no set plan, but there clearly was, because this is the thing he's done all year with Snell. He hasn't let him pitch late in the games. But I hate to blame Just Cash for this, because they only scored one run. So, there's nothing to say that they would have won 1-0, but still, I mean, you got to keep Snell in the game in that situation.
Now, all that being said, the Dodgers still won the World Series in 6 games, so credit to them for winning for the first time in 32 years. What are your thoughts on the Dodgers finally breaking through? We saw them, they lost to the Red Sox, they lost to the Astros. It kind of felt like this was a long time coming, especially for guys like Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to the Dodgers for finally winning one. I mean, I'm not the biggest Dodger fan. I think they whine a little bit too much at times. I know everybody was complaining about losing to the Astros. Well, we should have won this, we should have won that. But you just have to, when you're worried about something like that, just go out and beat them if you're that good. And they weren't up until the season. But all congrats to them. They played their butts off. Pitching, the bullpen really held up well. Kershaw finally got that playoff monkey off his back. So I guess I just have to say I'm impressed with them. Although I'm just not a big Dodgers fan. I guess it goes back to my fandom with the San Francisco Giants. I've been a Giants fan my whole life, so naturally I hate the Dodgers.
Okay, well that makes sense. Well, the Giants still have triple the number of World Series in the last 10 years the Dodgers have in the last 30. So you got that going for you.
That's correct. We always have those.
Dave, now with baseball being done, the only sport that's actually on TV, team sport-wise, right now is football, because basketball looks like they're not going to start till December or January. Hockey's not going to start, looks like, till January. Usually this time of year, we see hockey and basketball. So what do you think about the situation now? It's going to be just football all the time when it comes to the team sports.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's been complaining or suggesting that the ratings have been down for the NFL. But now that they're the only game in town, you would think that they would skyrocket now. I mean, people do need sports just to, everybody's a sports fan, but even just for an escape from all the craziness that's going out in the world. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, I really enjoy football too. I mean, NFL, college, even high school games. So, it's going to be an exciting time for them, and hopefully we'll get to see some great games and some great matchups going forward.
I mean, I'm a football junkie, so for me, it doesn't bother me. But I know a lot of people, they're so used to their schedule and the structure of the way the seasons go. And you mentioned the ratings. I'll just push back on that on one thing. I've been talking about this here on Game Night. People forget that, and this doesn't get talked about a lot by the people who talk about the ratings, which is television viewership is down 25% across the board for everything. Mm-hmm. And the NFL is still the most watched thing on television every time it's on television. Sports are usually the most watched thing when they're on television. The NBA Finals, except when they went against the NFL, they were the most watched thing on television. So, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but there is a perception out there that's been propagated by certain people who have agendas that make it like, oh, sports are failing, No, people are still watching sports. They're just not watching it always on their television. They're watching it on devices and other things.
That's a good point. It's a different world that we're living in now. There's like you said, a lot of streaming services. That's especially the case with boxing, with DAZN and everything else, and UFC Fight Pass, that kind of stuff. It's you're not necessarily just glued to the TV to Fox or ESPN or the NFL Network or MLB Network, whatever. There's a lot of other outlets out there. That's a really good point.
Now, with that being said, how have your viewership habits been affected by everything this year? Because now that baseball's done, there's only football. What is Dave Weinberg going to be consuming?
Well, I gotta watch Dancing with the Stars to placate my wife a little bit. And Supermarket Sweep is now back, so that's a big deal in our household. But yeah, I mean, other than that, though, I'm glued to football and boxing and everything else. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the Masters coming up in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I'll still have enough time to fill my schedule with sports.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because, I've heard Mike Gill talk about how he watches, The Bachelor and the Bachelorette with his significant other, and I've heard Hunter say that he watches
that low yet.
Hunter watches Love Island with his fiance, for example.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, now I'm the single guy here. I'm the one guy who doesn't have any attachments right now to any relationships with a lady at this moment in time for a little while now. But that's not the point. The point is that so I want to know from you. Is the Dancing with the Stars, was that like something that your wife was saying, I want to watch this? Or was that kind of something that you said, listen, if I'm going to sit down and watch something with you, I can stomach this?
Well, we've been watching that for a while now. So, she's kind of got into it early. And, I have to admit that I do enjoy it sometimes. I'm not really a big fan of it this season because they changed a lot of things around. But, generally, it's my wife she'll tape a lot of stuff too. So she'll DVR a lot of stuff and watch it later. But we enjoy like stuff like The Amazing Race, which I like too. I'm more into like the Netflix stuff than she is. So during the afternoon or something, I'll sneak in. I'm all caught up with Ozark from now on. I'm all in on Cobra Kai now. I really like that one. So I know I'm a little bit late to the party with it, but I really enjoy it. So she lets me watch that stuff. I let her watch her stuff. And then, we watch a lot of stuff together, too.
All right, so you watch Netflix. So have you watched Designated Survivor?
I have not.
All right, that's my recommendation for you. It's only 3 seasons. The first 2 seasons were on ABC. The show got pulled from ABC because ABC's live viewership was almost a third of what it was on demand and DVR. Netflix picked it up for the 3rd season. I think it's an incredibly fascinating show. That's my recommendation for you.
What's it about?
It's about Kiefer Sutherland plays a guy who is one of the lowest ranking members of a presidential administration, and the entire government is assassinated, and he has to become president.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I'll give that a shot. Sure.
It's one of those shows that it for me, it gripped me because I never thought I'd be interested in this show. And it's one of those shows that you're just like, this could literally maybe happen kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Well, my standards are pretty low. I mean, after all, I did become addicted to Tiger King, so that should tell you all you need to know.
Okay, well, I never did Tiger King, so that tells you where I'm at. But that doesn't say much about me because I watch a lot of superhero movies because I'm a comic book geek. So I don't know where that leaves me at.
Oh, okay.
He's Dave Weinberg. You can follow him on Twitter for much more interesting conversations than Netflix at Dave Weinberg 19. Check out his extra point columns at 973ESPN.com. Also check out his podcast, Tequila and Touchdowns. As all guests, he appears each week here on Game Night on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Dave, always appreciate the time and the conversation.
Oh, thanks, Josh. It was a lot of fun. Thanks a lot.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Game Night being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit them online at gmslaw.com. 609-403-0973 is the text board. We'll get to your text coming in next. Also, I'll give you a little bit more perspective on my thoughts on the 2020 World Series, the Sixers hiring Daryl Morey, and more, of course, for more information on the Sixers hiring of Daryl Morey, as well as 2 new assistant coaches. Go check it out, 973ESPN.com and the 973 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, we'll get back to the PlaySugarHouse.com text board in just a moment. 609-403-0973, the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Place your legal sports bets at PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now, and they'll match the first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's the PlaySugarHouse.com. 609-403-0973. Text chimes in, says, I agree with you, Josh, but don't worry. Jason Peters will get hurt again. He can't stay on the field. Jordan will be back at left tackle. Listen, I'm not worried about Peters getting hurt again. I know he will, Texter. The problem is that I'd rather him not be bumping a young player still learning how to play in the NFL to the completely other side of the line because he insists on being a left tackle, because he lacks the self-awareness to realize that the game is starting to pass him by. It just frustrates me. It frustrates me that you have a team sport, that the team is so important to winning in football. It's not an individual achievement sport. It's not like basketball where LeBron James can go to your team and win you a championship. It's not like baseball where Madison Bumgarner can basically be the guy who wins almost every game for the Giants in a World Series. It's not like hockey where the goaltender goes out there and can save your game or save your season or save your playoff run. No, in football, it literally is everyone has to do their job. And it feels like Jason Peters is more interested in getting what he wants and doing what's best for the team. 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Joey D. in Ventnor, he chimes in, says, Josh, take out the analytics. Are you taking Snell out of that game yesterday from the eye test? Please help your boy Hunter out. That's Joey D. in Ventnor. Well, first of all, I don't know how much I can help Hunter because Hunter has made his position very clear for about 4 hours on the radio today. And I'm pretty sure he's going to have a sports talk with Broads up as well on his YouTube channel. It's going to keep emphasizing that point. So I don't know how much I can help him. I'm not taking Snell out of the game yesterday. And in fact, I was pretty shocked when they did take Snell out of the game. And I don't care about analytics. I'm not anti or for analytics. I'm not one of these people. To me, analytics, they're not good. They're not bad. They're like anything. You can find information about anything that will help you make a decision. It's what you do with that information that makes a difference. There's an old saying, there's facts and there are true facts. There's the people who make decisions in their life based off of finding information, and then they make a decision off of all the information they gather. And then there's people who they have an opinion and they go find information to support their opinion, and then they flaunt and say, see, somebody agrees with me. And I feel like analytics are that. Analytics are information that can be used for anything. If you depend solely on analytics and don't take any other perspective into play, then you're flawed. And as myself, an expert in overanalysis and paralysis by overanalysis, Kevin Cash was paralyzed by analytics and overanalysis. And that's why I took Blake Snell out of the game, which he obviously should have stayed in. And we should have been playing a game tonight because Blake Snell probably would have given them an opportunity to win that game instead of the Dodgers just taking the life out of the Rays and winning the World Series. So that's how I view it, Joey D. and Menor. Blake Snell should have been in the game. Analytics or not, I'm sure there's some stat that would have said to keep him in the game anyway. He is a former Cy Young Award winner. There's probably some analytics number about how Cy Young Award winners in Game 6 of a playoff game, when they pitch 7 innings of a blah, blah, blah ERA, and that number would have told Kevin Cash to keep him in the game. But Kevin Cash decided to go with a tried and true method that the Rays have used all season long, and that, as Hunter says, got them to this point. And it's not that Hunter is wrong, and it's not that Kevin Cash is wrong, but the decision there is flawed because when you only depend on one source of information for your decision making, you are always going to make mistakes, whether it's baseball, whether it's any sport, whether it's in life in general. Look at me with my football picks. I guarantee you that if we went back to the tapes, every game that I have gotten wrong this year, okay? And how many have I gotten wrong this year? Let's see here. I'm 33-21. I guarantee you that almost every one of those 21 losses that I've gotten this year on my football picks throughout the college football season, it's because I didn't gather enough information before making a decision. Kevin Cash's problem wasn't taking out Blake Snell per se. It's the fact that he didn't factor anything else into his decision except for a limited batch of information. And a limited batch of information can get you so far. but it obviously cannot win you a world championship. And you know what? Good for the Dodgers. Good for Clayton Kershaw. I had picked the Dodgers, I know, so I wasn't really, rooting for either team to win because I don't have really a dog in the fight. But listen, when you look at the Dodgers, to me, it's very, very simple. And the simplicity of it all is this. They were the better team. And the Rays were trying to play without a full deck of cards. And the Dodgers were playing with a full deck of cards. And the Rays had gotten this far because they were able to get by without having all of the talent that it seemed like the Dodgers have. And they were able to get by to this point. But at the end of the day, I think the better team won. And whether Kevin Cash takes him out or not. So that's what I think of that. I'm not going to ignore the other story from last night. Not that anyone's per se ignoring it, but it's a very touchy and sensitive subject with the baseball world right now. But the fact that last night's Dodgers game ended in a little controversy with Justin Turner being pulled from the game because he tested positive for COVID-19, I think only answers how 2020 is going, right? 2020 has been a year of just everything going sideways and upside down. And the facts are this. Justin Turner had no positive tests up until yesterday through this entire postseason run. He had an inconclusive test before he had a positive test. They are currently testing everyone on the Dodgers and the Rays, see if he has passed it along to anybody else. He insisted on going out there and celebrating with his teammates after they won the World Series, against baseball's wishes and protocols. And baseball came out with a statement saying that, they're investigating, they're looking into it, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not angry with Justin Turner. What I am unhappy about is the fact that baseball just showed you the huge flaw in their whole system. How can a player go on the field when a test is still in process? See, the whole point of the NBA with their daily testing and the NHL with their daily testing and football with their daily testing is the idea that you cannot get on the field before your test comes back. So baseball was starting to get lax in their own protocols. And that's why Justin Turner's situation happened. I am less upset with Justin Turner than I am with baseball for allowing their own system to be worked around because they couldn't keep to the regimen that they put in place. Every other sport can do it. There is no other sport that got a test back after the player already got on the field or on the court or on the ice. So if you want to blame anybody, don't blame the Dodgers, don't blame Justin Turner, blame baseball and their protocols, because there's no way that player should have been allowed onto the field with an inconclusive test. Because if they're so concerned about COVID and they're so serious about it as they claim to be, they could have done one of two things. They could have postponed Game 6 and moved it to the next day, like football and other sports have done numerous times. Or, as soon as there were an inconclusive test, they could have done what the NBA and the UFC have done, which is just taken Justin Turner completely out of the situation so we wouldn't be having this conversation. We're so quick to blame the people involved in these situations, and we're less quick to blame the system putting them in that situation in the first place. It's easy to blame people for making mistakes because people make mistakes every single day of their lives. Nobody is perfect. But nobody wants to blame a system where you can have an inconclusive test and then a positive test, or a system where there is tons of false positives every single day. Nobody wants to blame the structure in place. That's the big problem. The structure in place is flawed itself. It's as flawed as the people involved in it. So when you want to blame Justin Turner, make sure you throw just as much spitfire at baseball for putting Turner and the Dodgers in that situation. By the way, Bob Nightingale of USA Today is reporting that the Tampa Bay Rays have received permission to leave Texas and headed home. So it looks like that the COVID-19, at least as of right now, did not affect them at all. So I guess that's some semi-good news. They get to go home and sleep in their own beds finally after not winning a championship. 609-403-0973 is the text board. PlaySugarHouse.com text board 609-403-0973. Daryl Morey is going to be the president of basketball operations for the 76ers. The story came out a little bit earlier today. You can see it all at 973 ESPN.com. And my reaction to it initially was the fact that Daryl Morey was courted by the Sixers a couple of years ago. Before they ever hired Elton Brand to be the GM, they tried to get Daryl Morey in here. Morey wouldn't leave the Rockets then. A couple of years later now, he is coming to the 76ers after stepping down with the Rockets just a little bit ago while the Rockets were in the middle of their coaching search. By the way, the Rockets just hired a new head coach. It's Steven Silas, the assistant coach from the Mavs. By the way, congratulations, Steven Silas. You were the only non-former head coach to get a head coaching job outside of the guy who got hired in Indiana, who I don't remember his name because his name is complicated up top of my head. So congratulations. They're giving somebody fresh a job opportunity, unlike giving a retread like Stan Van Gundy's fourth coaching job, because he happens to be a good guy on broadcasting and he's a aggressive tweeter. Good for you. That's a great resume you got there, Stan. But anyway, I like the hire of Daryl Morey by the Sixers. I believe the seeds were planted 2 years ago when they had the conversation originally. And to me, this is an opportunity for the ownership of the 76ers to have somebody in charge of their basketball operations and step away from the operation again. I don't think that Josh Harris, David Blitzer, or anybody in the ownership group has an interest in being a micromanager. I do think that there is a lack of trust at times from the ownership to the people in the front office, and that's why they've had these, these triumvirates of people, these multiple voices, these different people involved in the process, because they think that's the best way to do it. I don't agree with that. I think that you need a delineated authority structure. Who makes a decision? Who's above who has the final say? And maybe you can finally have that with Daryl Morey. And I think the combination of Morey and Brand and Doc Rivers put the Sixers in an opportunity to be the best they can be. I think Daryl Morey, being the president of basketball operations, allows him to oversee everything. It allows Elton Brand to have a filter between him and the ownership, and it gives Doc Rivers another ally above him in terms of trying to put this team in the best position to be successful. I asked Sixers fans to do one thing now. Be patient. Championships are not won overnight. Let Daryl Morey and Doc Rivers and everyone do their job before you judge them right off the bat.